Hi, welcome to Kingston Coffee and Conversation. I'm Bob Fennessy, the host, and with me today I have Chief Maurice Splaine. And Chief, welcome. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.
Join me in a cup of coffee while we sit here and chat about things.
Thank you.
Okay, so you are a Kingston boy?
Yes, I grew up in
Correct.
Kingston. I've been a lifelong resident. Attended Kingston, schools, Silver Lake High School. Just couldn't get out of town.
And you never left town?
Never left town. Never left the street I grew up on either.
So how many years? Let me back up a little. So you grew up in Kingston. You went to the high school, and then where'd you go to college?
I went to Boston College.
BC.
Yes,
Yep.
graduated in 1985. That way people at home that are doing the math can figure out how old I am.
So, and did you study criminal justice?
Boston College didn't have a criminal justice program per se. They kind of focused on pre-law. So what I took was classes in political science, which is kind of the equivalent to a criminal justice degree.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so at some point in your life, young life, you became interested in law enforcement.
Yes.
Do you recall what sparked that, or?
When I was a kid, I used to, my parents bought a scanner, and I used to always listen to the scanner,
Okay.
and listen to the calls. Small town, you get to know the officers, you get a relationship with some of them. Became very friendly with an officer from Pembroke. He used to take me back in the days before you worried about liability. He used to let me ride with him on midnight shifts.
Ride-alongs.
Yeah. Just learn the job from them. And I also worked when I was in college for a family that was in law enforcement, and they too, got me interested in it.
Okay, so and then obviously to become a police officer, you need to go to an academy somewhere.
Yeah.
So where did you go? Which academy did you attend?
I went to the academy. It's so long ago. It's no longer there.
Yeah.
But it was in Foxborough.
Okay.
Was
it run by the Foxborough Police Department? Or
No, it was run by the
police?
state police, but it was in Foxborough at the time. It was a municipal academy, but back in the day, it was run by the state police, and that was back in the very early `
So when you went to the academy, had you already been put on the Kingston Police Department?
Yeah, I was appointed as a part-time or a permanent intermittent officer in I think it was 88. And then in 1990, they appointed me as a full-time permanent intermittent officer. And about a year later, I was appointed as a full-time officer, and that's when I went to the academy.
Okay. So you got out of the academy. It's kind of a day in your life. You then get on the full-time police department.
Right.
And you started your career moving up the ladder.
Right.
So, and obviously you're here as the chief. So
Right.
you can't get much higher than that. So congratulations on that.
Well, thank you.
That accomplishment. That's very, obviously there's many police officers in every city in town, and only one makes it up to the chief level. So that's an accomplishment. So when you started, I'm kind of getting a sense of because I've been here now 3 years, I know what it's like now. But one thing that I can't bring to the job is what it was like back then and the changes. So kind of step me through the changes of when you were a rookie, say, and what police work is like now as many years later, or a few years later. So
as much as people like to say that it's changed, it's basically stayed the same. And if you watch TV shows like Andy Griffith or Adam 12, they went on the same calls that we're dealing with today. It's all about developing relationships with the community. The technology has changed. If you watch Andy Griffith, they never had radios in the police cars or computers. Checks weren't instantaneous, but still you tried to
they
solve.
only had one bullet for their pocket.
Yeah,
right?
you just tried to solve problems, help people get along, and that's basically what you're doing today. Today, you're doing a lot more, I guess what you would call community caretaker type of things, where you're not always looking at things strictly from a criminal justice standpoint, but you're trying to facilitate people to get help. Like right now, you got the opioid crisis, and a lot of times instead of like just arresting somebody and bringing them to court, throwing them in jail, you're trying to get them the help they need, and you're looking at a lot of times people like that as victims as opposed to criminals. So that's a change in policing philosophy. You're asked to do a lot more. A lot of the things you do now is also kind of like being a social worker. And you're working with the schools, the hospitals, things like that, just to bring services to the community you're serving.
So do you think it shifted from routine police work, say vehicle stops and other domestic issues and things that you go on a daily basis, to more of what you're saying, dealing with the issue itself and dealing with the people and trying to get those people the services they need or in the right direction?
Right. I mean, I don't like the word routine, because that could get you in trouble. If you fall into a routine, you let up your guard, you still got to be vigilant in what you're doing. You still want to be safe. You're still telling your officers, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of the people you're dealing with, even though they may need help or, have some type of substance abuse issue, they could still hurt you. So you still got to be aware and protect yourself, your surroundings, your fellow officers, people in the community. But I don't know. I kind of forget what your question was.
Well, whether you're doing more like social work, like you were saying, instead of not the routine, instead of the normal, the investigations and the motor vehicle stops and.
I think you always did social work. It just before you kind of were like an island unto yourself, where now you have other resources available. And a lot of times you're looking for partnerships, joint venture, to try to solve a problem. And a lot of times it's kind of now being solved or looked at as more, from a community perspective. And you have more, I guess, the hot buzzword now is like stakeholders and different things. And everybody tries to bring something that they think will help, with the issue. And it's kind of like, it takes a village, to solve a problem, that type of thing.
So I know that the department hasn't grown much in numbers over the years. However, the town has, both in the number of businesses that have come into town and industry, as well as the population. Are you seeing that becoming more of an issue, dealing with so many people, so many issues, so many businesses?
Well, Kingston's kind of unique. It's a small community, but it seems that we have every major highway on the South Shore that goes through it. So we have a lot of issues, with traffic. We have a regional shopping center, which brings a lot of people, and with that, sometimes you get less than desirable people that go there to perpetrate a crime, to steal, to do things that are illegal. And we also have with the end of the MBTA line here in Kingston.
Right.
So we end up getting a lot of, if there's an issue on the train, they just bring the issue to the end of the line and we ended up dealing with it.
Well, that's kind of how we look at it in Plainville, because we are on the most western part of Route 106, and Kingston is the end on 106 in the
Well,
eastern
that's what
part.
our connection
and we
is.
throw everything down this way
Yeah.
from Plainville. It's the end of the line. Yeah, that's a connection there. So.
But we also now have got 2 regional schools in our community, and we're just responsible for providing protection for an awful lot of different entities. And what makes it kind of hard is the manpower is basically the same since the mid-90s. In fact, it decreased for a while too during some bad budget years, and the officers just have to try to do the best they can with what's out there, with resources you have.
Okay, before we wrap up, because we do have a second segment to this evening, But I want to talk to you briefly about a project that's going on in town to assist the police and as well as the town itself. And that is a project a proposal to build a new police station. So briefly, we only have a few more minutes. What's the situation with the police station now?
Well, right now, we're in the a phase where we have a police station building committee. Prior to that, there was a police station study committee that basically evaluated the current facility, the deficiencies that are there, both for the staff and for the public at large. And, you know, as part of both of those committees, they determined that the current building is basically, it's beyond its useful lifeness. It's been around since 1984. That's when, you know, they moved in to the current facility. Prior to that, they were in like 2 rooms in the old town hall. And so when they moved into the new building, it was a big improvement. The trouble is they built the new building without making it ADA compliant. There was really no anticipation that there could be female members employed at the police station. The dispatch at that time wasn't centralized. Now we dispatch for police, fire, and EMS. And basically the building was designed to be run by one police officer being in it. So they kind of made the dispatch center the hub of the building. The trouble is that design now, it's just not advantageous because, you know, they're trying to answer medical calls, fire calls, and things of that nature, and you have police officers walking through, you know, the dispatch room. It's designed so you enter one room through another room through another room. There's not like a central hallway. The building was built without evidence rooms, without interview rooms. There's not handicapped access. It's, you know, we're having a lot of issues now too with the mechanical aspects of the building. You know, the heating, the ventilation, there's water infiltration. There's just a lot of issues, and it would cost a lot of money to try to update the current facility without increasing 1 square foot of the building.
And the usability of it.
Right. We're also being monitored by the state, where they come in and they check the cells and things of that nature, and they tell us we're deficient there, and we have suicide hazards. I mean, what was, you know, good back in 1984 doesn't meet current standards, and that's basically what it is we're trying to upgrade and get a more modern facility to meet the needs of the community now. You know, you balance that, you know, also with the needs of the officers that work out of that building. You know, it's, you know.
Okay, so I am going to bring in a second session, a segment. The chairman of the Police Station Building Committee, Sandra MacFarlane, who's also a selectman, as well as Greg Carell, who's our architect, and we'll get into that whole process. But I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing a cup of coffee with me, and I hope to see you again, which I will every day since we work together, but thank you.
Well, thank you.
And stay tuned and we'll bring on the next guests.
Are your children in the right car seat for their age and size? It may be too late to check when you're on the road. Fortunately, you're on the couch. Don't think you know you know.
Hi, welcome back. And I brought in our next guests. I have Sandra MacFarlane, who's a Board of Selectmen member in Kingston, also the chairman of the Police Study Building Committee.
Police
Station Building Committee. I know I'd get it wrong, but we have Greg Carell, who is our architect that was hired to put forth the designs that we're looking for. So welcome, Greg.
Thank you.
And if anybody recognizes Greg, you may have seen his brother on a movie, Steve Carell.
My brush with fame.
That is your brush with fame, and you're so different, you know, in my eyes, because you're very cerebral and understanding and quiet, and it just seems like the complete opposites, much like my brother and I. And we have Sandra MacFarlane. So welcome, Sandra. And why don't you tell us a little bit about how the committee formed and how it progressed through from one committee to the next through the Board of Selectmen.
Yes. several years ago, we have always been aware that the police station has been inadequate for the number of people in town and for the number of police officers that we have to maintain, and even for the vehicle parking and equipment that we have. There was a study committee put together basically to save the town money. It was estimated that it was going to cost $50,000 for a feasibility study. We felt that we could do that ourselves, and this study committee actually did that. We ended up with a report after going through many, many meetings and visiting 5 or 6 different police stations that were recently built. We came up with the report, presented it to the Board of Selectmen last October, and then started with our police station building committee to.
Okay, and so when it was the study committee and looking at the other police stations that had been built recently, you looked at a number of different types, one level, multi-level.
Yes,
and
we
so
did.
forth.
Currently, the police station is a 2-level. It's 2 floors with a basement, and that's caused a lot of problems with flooding and some of the equipment because it wasn't built correctly and there's no space down there. Our 911 backup system actually sits in something that floods all the time, and we have sandbags at the doors and sandbags around it. So one of the things we looked at was two-level buildings, but then you have the expense of additional ADA requirements, elevators, things like that. We looked at a building that was built into a hill so the public would come into a floor, and then the police officers would drive down behind and they would have access to the main floor. But that didn't seem right either. And what we ended up with was the design for a single floor police station that has slab on grade, would be built with no foundation but a knee wall, 4-foot knee wall, so that cuts out the flooding problems right away. We also have several types of flooring that we're looking at so that the cables for all of the necessary equipment will go under the floors, but we'll be able to access them through panels. Things like that we thought of to actually keep our costs down.
Okay, and so there was some funding that was put forth to put on RFQ, to look for an architect to give us a basic design of a building, and that became part of what the police station building committee looked at.
Yes, the RFQ was very detailed in that we wanted someone who was very experienced with safety, public safety buildings, specifically police stations. A fire station is one kind of a building that has to have specialized equipment and specialized areas, and a police station is, in my eyes, completely different now that I've looked at them. And we got about 8 RFQ responses. The entire 9-member committee sat and looked at that, including yourself, and we ended up with a point system, and Mr. Carell's group was far and above the other groups with everything that we needed, including looking at costs, redesign, overruns on the costs, coming in on time, things like that.
Yep. Okay, so that brings me to Mr. Carell, if I might, Greg.
Please.
And you had presented your response to the qualifications, and again, we went through all of them, and you came out at the top. And I understand from that, we learned that you did a number of police stations and other buildings, obviously not just police stations, but a number. And is that basically your forte?
It is. We opened the Carell Group in 1985, and almost from the beginning we specialized in public safety architecture, almost exclusively fire and police stations. And since then, that's pretty much all we've done. We've done several dozen of them. We've done fire and/or police stations for, I think it's over 50 municipalities in Massachusetts.
Wow.
So it's something that we do.
And I know we talked, you did some locally.
Yes, we just recently finished the Duxbury Police Station and the addition to the Duxbury Fire Station as well.
Okay, any others in the area or the southeast of Mass?
We have an emergency operations center in Plymouth. There's down in this, we did some work out on the Cape earlier on, down in Orleans and Yarmouth, that area.
Okay, so give me a little bit, for our viewers, a little of your background.
Okay.
And how you got to where you're at now.
Well, I graduated from Syracuse University in 1978, and it was
And
a
yeah,
tough-
I'm sure you watched the,
it was a tough weekend.
talking about the basketball, the Final Four there.
So we, after graduating, I worked for a number of firms around Boston, and as I said, in 1985, I decided to hang up my shingle, and we specialized in public safety since then. We're a small firm. There are, usually 4 or 5 of us in-house, and just a focused bunch that knows this product. And
Okay.
we've had some pretty good success.
Yeah. Okay, and so on this project, you were given the marching orders, so to speak, to develop a design. And if you want to talk a little bit about, I think we do have some pictures that we can show the public.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure. We can start with the floor plan. I should start by saying that for a building to be successful, for a police station to be successful, it really has to deal with 3 things. It's got to work for the department. It's got to meet the needs of the police department. It's got to be economical, and it's got to be something the town can afford, both to build and operate in the long-term maintenance and so forth, and then the cost of utilities and what have you. In addition, it's got to be something the town's going to be proud of. It's got to fit the town of Kingston. It's got to be something people are going to say, that's a nice building, I'm glad this is here.
right.
So that's really the mission, and this is the floor plan. We've got it kind of color-coded to show you the different zones. Perhaps the biggest challenge to designing a police station is that it has a lot of very diverse and often conflicting components. You have to deal with the public and public business. And as the chief was saying earlier, that a lot of policing is dealing with the community and community outreach and counseling and that sort of thing. So it has to be an inviting environment for the public. It also has to deal with some pretty privacy issues and security issues. You're dealing with interrogation, you're dealing with evidence storage, and certainly you're locking up the bad guys. So you have some security places in the station that need to work, but with everything else, but at the same time be defined and delineated. Okay. And then of course you have to take care of the staff. You need locker rooms and break rooms and the like. What we've come up with, as Sandy was saying, it's a single-story building which operationally works best for the police department. Everything being on one floor facilitates circulation. Right off the lobby, we have on one side is the administration area.
You want to go back to the yeah.
Right off the lobby on the left there we have.
Which color are we looking at here?
This is right here on the left, that whole corner. That's the administration area, so public can do their business right there. On the other side, we have a meeting room, which can be used for police training as well as public meetings, any kind of community policing, that sort of thing could happen there. And that room is accessible by the public without going into the station. Exactly. Yeah. So you don't.
So it can be set up as a community room too, if need be.
Exactly.
That other groups may be able to use.
And an emergency operations center, as a because it's a 24-hour building.
And it can be used as a revenue generator because we made it just big enough so that we can host trainings, and people that are the hosts of trainings therefore get free training for their people. Right. So it can actually give us some revenue.
Now, as you go back into the building, certainly right in the middle, you can see that's the dispatch area, and that has control over the lobby, the public entry to the building. The dispatch area is a bulletproof space, so it's protected from any kind of disruption. Towards the back of the building in the yellow, we have the detention area, and that's accessed through a garage. We call it a sally port, which is a cruiser will drive in with a prisoner, and then that prisoner, the garage door is closed, and the prisoner is transferred into the detention area, so there's never a possibility of someone escaping. We have 4 cells in the building for detention. We have secure evidence storage, and then and basically the support facilities and a small fleet garage.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's, and it's one level, but there's a peak, so if need be, there can be at some point put storage or other
Correct.
things if you needed to expand
It's
it.
an unfinished.
Because we're looking at, what, a 50-year building here,
Oh, easily, yes.
easily?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this will
We
take,
chose the materials
this'll-
very carefully.
unfortunately, this will outlive all of us. So, but maybe not our children or their children.
And the peaks on the
So-
roof are also for snow removal, so that we don't have to get up there and take it off the roof like we did this year.
Yeah. So if we can quickly look at the land that we're considering, and that's part of the Silver Lake Regional School District land that it'll be at the town meetings to purchase. And that's situating in kind of on a 5-acre lot.
Right. It's utilizing 3 acres of a 5-acre parcel, the rest of which I believe is mostly wetlands. So it's 3 usable acres that we're using. There are some very quick comments about the site. It's delineated so that you have public access on one side, police access on the other, protected parking for police. And we've also added a carport, so you don't have to leave cruisers running during the winter to make,
Save gas there.
save gas, and they're always ready to go and dry. And we also have an outbuilding, basically an inexpensive metal building behind the station for whatever the police department needs, storage, impounding a vehicle, whatever general use. And it's, as I said, it's an inexpensive thing.
Okay, and I think what everybody wants to see is what would this building look like to the passerby?
Well, here's basically a rough sketch of the outside. You can see that it has a traditional New England feel to it.
Very similar feel that the townhouse has. When you look at this with the cupola and the wings. Yeah, beautiful.
And it's all going to
Beautiful.
be in a clapboard type material. It's a cementitious clapboard, so it doesn't need maintenance, but it'll look New England.
Okay, so do you have anything else to add, or do you have anything else to add before we wrap
Just to
this
say
up?
that every decision we did make as a group, the 9 of us and with Mr. Carell, was a cost savings to the town. The materials, their maintenance is low. Any maintenance that we have can be accessed from the outside so that we don't have maintenance people going into the building, and that saves money also. Everything we thought of was cost first, but also functionality. And I
Right.
believe that what we ended up with is a very functional and very nice looking building.
Right. Excellent. Okay, well, Sandra, thank you for coming
you
in
so
and
much.
joining. And Greg, thank you. And to our viewers, until our next cup of coffee, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you again. Cheers.
Cheers.